It's 3 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling. Your phone is face down on the nightstand because you promised yourself you wouldn't check it. But your brain is wide awake, and a small, panicked voice is telling you something is wrong with you. Here's the strange part. For most of human history, this exact moment, wide awake in the middle of the night, wasn't a malfunction. It was the plan. You've been taught that sleep is supposed to be one long, unbroken block. 8 hours, lights out, lights on. If you wake up in the middle of the night, you assume you've failed at something basic, something every other animal on Earth seems to do effortlessly. But your ancestors didn't sleep the way you think they did. And the reason you're awake right now might be older than agriculture itself. Let's go back. Not centuries, not even to the Roman Empire. Let's go back to before electric light existed at all, to villages lit only by fire and moonlight. The historian A. Roger Ekirch spent over a decade combing through diaries, court records and medical texts from pre-industrial Europe. What he found surprised him. Ordinary people weren't sleeping in one block. They were sleeping in two. There was a first sleep, starting shortly after dusk. Then, sometime around midnight, people simply woke up, not from insomnia, not from stress. They woke up because that's what a human body does when it isn't fighting against artificial light. During that waking window, people didn't panic. They got up. They tended the fire. They talked quietly with a spouse. Some prayed. Some had sex. Some just lay there, thinking, in a state historians describe as calm and almost meditative. Then, after an hour or two, a second sleep would follow, carrying them through until morning. Ekirch found references to this first sleep and second sleep in hundreds of documents, so casually mentioned that it's clear nobody thought it was unusual. It was just Tuesday night. So what changed? Light changed. Cheap, abundant, artificial light. As gas lamps and then electric bulbs spread through cities in the 1800s and 1900s, nights stopped being dark. And when nights stopped being dark, the biphasic sleep pattern that had structured human rest for thousands of years quietly disappeared. Within a generation or two, people forgot it had ever existed. But your biology didn't get the memo. In the 1990s, the psychiatrist Thomas Wehr ran an experiment that felt almost cruel by modern standards. He took a group of participants and kept them in near total darkness for 14 hours a night. No lamps, no screens, nothing. Just darkness. The way a winter night in a world before electricity would have felt. Within about a month, something predictable happened. Their sleep split on its own. With no instruction, they began falling into two distinct sleep periods, with a quiet waking window in between, almost identical to what Ekirch had found buried in centuries-old diaries. Wehr's participants weren't broken. They were reverting. Stripped of artificial light, their bodies rediscovered a pattern that modern life had simply paved over. So when you wake up at 3 a.m., heart a little fast, mind a little too alert, you're not necessarily experiencing a disorder. You might be experiencing a ghost, a biological memory of a rhythm your ancestors lived by for most of human existence, one that only vanished in the last 150 years or so, which is nothing in evolutionary time. There's more to this story, though, and it isn't only about Europe. The neuroscientist Jerome Siegel wanted to know what sleep looked like in societies that had never adopted electric light at all. So his team studied 3 modern hunter-gatherer and forager groups: the Hadza in Tanzania, the San in Namibia, and the Tsimane in Bolivia. Communities with no electricity, no clocks, no screens. What he found challenged assumptions in both directions. These groups didn't consistently show the two-part sleep Ekirch described in old European records. Instead, they slept in a single period, but one that was flexible, shaped entirely by darkness and temperature rather than an alarm clock. They didn't go to bed at sunset. They stayed active for a few hours after dark, around the fire, talking, doing quiet tasks. And they woke, on average, before sunrise, without alarms, without grogginess, seemingly on an internal rhythm that had never needed correcting. What almost none of them reported was insomnia. The very concept barely translated. Waking briefly in the night wasn't feared, it wasn't tracked, worried over, or turned into a problem to be solved. It was just night. Compare that to now. You wake at 3 a.m., and immediately your mind assigns it a meaning, anxiety, failure, a broken system that needs fixing with an app, a supplement, a routine you read about at 1 a.m. on your phone, which, of course, only makes it worse. Here's the deeper reframe. It's not just that we sleep differently now. It's that we've turned a normal biological event into a crisis. For most of human history, the night wasn't something you were supposed to conquer in one uninterrupted block. It was something you moved through, sometimes awake, sometimes not, in rhythm with darkness rather than in defiance of it. Waking briefly wasn't the enemy of rest. It was part of rest. What actually disrupts that ancient rhythm isn't waking up. It's what you do the moment you wake up. Your ancestors, in that quiet midnight window, sat with low firelight, or no light at all. Their eyes stayed adjusted to darkness. Their brains kept producing melatonin, the hormone that signals night to your body. You, on the other hand, reach for a phone, a screen that floods your retina with blue heavy light, so bright it can suppress melatonin production almost immediately. Researchers studying light exposure, including work building on Wehr's original findings, have shown that this kind of light at night doesn't just keep you awake. It tells your brain, incorrectly, that morning has already arrived. So the 2-hour waking window your ancestors spent calmly tending a fire, you spent scrolling, heart rate climbing, cortisol rising, your body convinced that the night is somehow both over and never ending at the same time. This is the part that should change how you feel about your own nights. You are not malfunctioning at 3 a.m. Your body might be doing exactly what human bodies have done for the vast majority of our species' existence. The malfunction, if there is one, is in what modern life has trained you to do the moment you notice you're awake. So the next time you find yourself lying there in the dark, resist the urge to reach for the glowing rectangle on your nightstand. Try, instead, what humans did for thousands of years before insomnia was even a word. Lie still. Let your eyes stay in the dark. Let your mind wander without judging it for wandering. You are not failing at sleep. You are, for a few strange minutes, doing something your ancestors would have recognized instantly, and something your body has never actually forgotten how to do. Let's stay with Ekirch's research for a moment, because the details matter more than the summary. He didn't find 1 or 2 mentions of first sleep and second sleep. He found hundreds, scattered across letters, medical journals, court testimony, and even poetry. A servant describing what happened between the first sleep and morning. A physician noting the best time to conceive a child was after the first sleep, when the body was rested, but not fully awake. None of these people were explaining an unusual concept. They were referencing something so ordinary, it needed no explanation. The way you might mention breakfast. That's the detail that should stop you. An entire structure of nightly life, practiced for generations, vanished so completely that by the 20th century, historians didn't even know to look for it. It wasn't lost through some dramatic event. It was lost through convenience, through light switches, through nobody ever needing to wake up in the dark again. Now think about what filled that gap once the second sleep disappeared. Nothing gentle, no firelight, no quiet conversation. What filled it, eventually, was worry. Because once you expect one unbroken block of sleep, and your body doesn't deliver that, waking up stops feeling natural. It starts feeling like evidence. Evidence that something is wrong with you specifically, rather than evidence that you're a human animal responding normally to a very old rhythm. This is worth sitting with. Insomnia, as a diagnosed, feared, medicated condition, is a relatively modern invention. Not because people never woke at night before. They did, constantly. But because waking at night used to carry no story attached to it, now it carries an entire narrative of failure. And that narrative might be doing more damage than the waking itself. Consider Wehr's experiment again, because one detail tends to get skipped over. It wasn't just that his participants' sleep split into two parts. It was how they described the waking window itself. Many of them reported it as calm. Some described a kind of quiet alertness they hadn't experienced before, not panic, not frustration, but a strange, almost peaceful clarity in the dark. Now, bring in Siegel's hunter-gatherer research again, because it adds a piece Ekirch's European archives couldn't offer. The Hadza, San, and Tsimane groups he studied weren't just falling asleep and waking up on a different schedule than you. They were doing it without a single one of the sleep anxieties that define modern nights.
No one in these communities reported lying awake dreading an alarm clock. No one calculated how many hours of sleep they had lost. There was no framework for that kind of accounting, because sleep wasn't treated as a resource to be measured and optimized. It was treated as something that happened the way digestion happens, without constant monitoring. Compare that to the modern relationship with sleep trackers. Devices that tell you, the moment you open your eyes, exactly how badly you supposedly slept. A number on a screen before you've even had coffee, informing you that your night was a failure. Your ancestors never received that kind of report. And there's a real question worth asking here. Did tracking sleep more precisely actually make anyone sleep better? Or did it just give the anxiety a number to attach itself to? There's a reframe hiding inside all of this, and it isn't simply that waking at night is fine, so don't worry about it. It's something a little sharper. The waking itself was never the problem. The problem is what an artificially lit, screen-saturated, constantly measured version of modern life has taught you to do the moment you notice you're awake. Your ancestors, waking in the dark, had almost nothing to reach for. No screen, no clock glowing red in the corner of the room, no app waiting to tell them their heart rate had dropped. All they had was darkness, low firelight if any, and each other. So they did quiet things. They talked. They thought. Some described it as their most reflective hours, a private space between one sleep and the next.
You have something they didn't. A device engineered, quite deliberately, to capture your attention the instant you're vulnerable and half awake. And when you reach for it, at 3 a.m., you're not just checking the time. You're flooding your eyes with light that mimics daylight, which tells the part of your brain still running on ancient rules that morning has arrived, hours early, and that whatever sleep window remained is now closing. So here's what actually connects your ancestors' nights to yours. The rhythm hasn't disappeared. Your body still knows how to wake in the dark, sit quietly, and drift back into rest. What's changed is the environment around that ancient rhythm. Ekirch's diaries describe firelight. Wehr's lab used darkness. Siegel's foragers had only stars and embers. You have a screen bright enough to convince your own brain that the sun has already risen. None of this means you're broken when you wake up at night. If anything, it means you're behaving exactly the way a human nervous system, shaped over hundreds of thousands of years, is supposed to behave when it isn't drowning in artificial light. The truly modern failure isn't the waking, it's the reaching. So try this. The next time it happens, don't reach. Let your eyes stay adjusted to the dark the way your ancestors' eyes did for nearly all of human history. Let the quiet feel like quiet, not like a countdown to disaster. You are not failing at sleep. You are, for a strange, brief window, doing something your body has never actually forgotten how to do. It's 3 a.m. and you're staring at the ceiling. But this time, maybe, you'll understand exactly why. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, that understanding is enough to let you drift, quietly, back into the dark.